recording to the right. Fabulous. Okay. So we're going to start kneeling rather than cross-legged today. If that does feel uncomfortable, feel free to find cross-legged. And seeing as we got those blocks out the car, we might take our block in between the legs so it's underneath our hip, just to kind of support with that, because we will be there a little bit of time. So find a point that feels comfortable. It might be that your kind of tailbone sits on the block. And then hands could either land on the thighs or the knees. I'm going to turn my palms to face upwards here. You could also have the palms facing down. And then we'll spend a little bit of time kind of grounding and arriving in the practice, as we always do. So you might take a few deeper breaths in and out here. Inhale and exhale. Maybe there's 3 or 4 of those deeper breaths. And then returning to your natural rhythm of breath for a moment here. And it might be that that rhythm is a little bit slower as we've started to arrive already. We'll take some time here to check in with the body and mind. That might be checking in with any physical sensations that you can feel here. So maybe there's sensations through the tops of the feet, maybe through shoulders or other areas. Also taking a bit of time to check in with how you're feeling in the mind. So any thoughts or feelings that arise. And then we might take a moment to welcome all of those things into our practice without judgment here. So rather than kind of adding a narrative as to why, perhaps open-hearted welcoming into our practice. Knowing that they're all part of us today. And then that option is there to start working with the breath. So we might come to our Ujjayi breath today. We could start that by breathing in and out through the nose, but the mouth might be open here. Maybe your exhale is through the mouth, imagining that each exhale, you're kind of steaming up a mirror in front of you here. So when you're kind of fogging up a mirror, there's that slight sound on your exhale. And in our Ujjayi breath, we're looking for that slight kind of contraction at the very back of our throat to find a little bit of kind of audible sound, audible breath. So it can sound a bit like the ocean, the air moving around the space. You could keep going with this if you would like to. Option to close down the mouth, but to see if we can keep that audible breath going here. So even though we are breathing through the nose, we're still drawing the air down through the throat. Maybe even fast sounds a little bit more kind of Darth Vader-y when we breathe fully through the nose. And we'll be here for another 15 or 20 breaths today, so a little bit longer. So there's that space to kind of really connect into your breath. Option to add in your Mula Bandha lock here as well. So that pelvic floor lock. And to start to engage that, we might find a slight tuck under of the tailbone and that kind of sense of drawing up within the pelvic floor. It might feel like a rather engagement than a squeeze and a hold there. So you're aware of the space. And each breath draws down towards it and then releases back up, but we're keeping hold of that lock. And keeping that going as we breathe here. If you have other bandhas in play, feel free to add those in as well here. And as we move through our practice today, there'll be spaces to kind of go into a little bit of exploration within the pose. So perhaps going deeper within each posture. So that might mean, even though we'll take some fairly warm movements today, we might pause and take a bit of time within each posture. And perhaps taking another 10 or so rounds of breath here. And you're welcome to keep your Ujjayi breath going if you would like to, or we can come back to it later. But from here, starting to take our right hand down alongside the right hip on the fingertips, left hand scoops forwards over towards the right side and then reaches up and round. So our left hand is reaching over and behind our right shoulder, chest is slightly lifted here. We're going to take swings of this round to the other side. So the left hand swoops around in front until your fingers land behind your left hip. Right hand swoops around to the sky. And then we'll start to find rhythm within this. So keeping that going, round to the left and back round to the right. We'll find another 5 or so here on each time. Option as you come round is to lift the hips up as well. Maybe your eyes follow your fingertips each time. So as the right hand comes round, you might be looking up at fingertips and lifting the hips. We'll take another 3 here. Maybe you move with the breath. Inhales as you lift the hips, exhales as you scoot back round. One more on each side. And then as you come back through to center here, both hands find the ground, tucking our toes under behind, and then coming into our kneeling toe stretch. So hands again might find the thighs. On the toes here, both toes are tucked under. We'll take a couple of breaths within this. Hands might be landing on your thighs today. Seeing if you can connect to that sensation within the feet. Take one more breath. And then hands come all the way down, untucking the toes, but sitting back to our child's pose today. So if you need a bit more space at the top of your mat, drawing the hips backwards, toes draw back as well. And then forehead might come down towards the ground. Maybe it lands on your hands. So finding your variation of your child's pose. And we'll take another 5 rounds of breath. Seeing if we can keep the hips down, but drawing the hips towards the back of your mat. Maybe you find a little bit of kind of stretch in the opposite direction by reaching the fingertips as far forwards as you can here. Take 2 more breaths. And then from our child's pose, lifting the chest just enough so it's hovering off the mat here. We're going to come all the way down onto the belly. So elbows drop back down, chest draws forwards here, and then hips draw forwards, toes reach back behind, finding our cobra, pushing into the palms, lifting the chest. Drawing back down, we'll push to our child pose, hips come all the way back to the heels, and we're going to keep that movement going again here. So lifting enough to look forward, scooping the belly all the way forward, chest lift, cobra. And then hips draw back to the heels. We'll take that 3 more times here. Seeing if you can find that almost kind of draw forwards with the chest. Maybe you come up to up dog, pushing into the palms, lifting higher. Hips come back to the heels. Twice more in your own palm. Draw forwards and along, lifting the chest up, scooping the hips backwards. One more time. As we come through, we'll hold it either in our cobra or our up dog and take a round of breath there. And then tucking both toes under, pushing to your first downward facing dog of your practice, and then taking a little bit of time to connect into that pose as well. So rolling through your ankles or giving the head a good shake. Option to either pause here in your downward facing dog, or we'll start to warm ourselves up with those plank downward facing dog rolls. So if you are joining, rolling forward to your plank, hand stack over, shoulder stack over our hands, and then dropping the knees to the ground, scooping the hips backwards, and then up to the side. And again, we'll keep that moving here. So rolling forwards to your plank, knees drop, hips scoop back, and then up. We'll take that another 4 times. Option as you come through to hover the knees so they're just above the ground, or to drop them down. Eventually, we will meet back in our downward facing dog. From our downward facing dog, taking a slow walk to the top of our mat. So placing one foot right in front of the other, maybe a little bit slower than we might normally. Toes might come together today towards the top of your mat. A little bit of space between the heels. And then option to take hold of either elbow in your ragdoll. Maybe you take a sway around, moving that through the hip. And then releasing either elbow, slow roll all the way up to standing. We're going to take that slow roll all the way back down, tucking the chin, drawing the shoulders forwards, rounding through the back until we come all the way back down to our forward fold. Stepping just our right foot back, right knee comes down, toe is untucked, hands find the sky. Palms are facing each other here in our low lunge or Anjaneyasana, and then drawing the hips forwards. Maybe you look up between the hands and take a couple of breaths here. And then drawing our hips backwards, hands come down on the inside of our left foot. And we're going to shuffle that left foot to the very outside of our mat. We're coming into our lizard lunge. If you've got your blocks, you might grab your blocks here, taking them underneath your hands. And then drawing forwards. So the blocks help us find a little bit more lift of the chest here. Take them perhaps underneath your shoulders. Seeing if we can draw the chest forward, chin comes up towards the sky. And again, we'll take 2 rounds of breath here. Opening through that right hip flexor. And then we'll take this into our half splits, but the heel stays out to the side here. So drawing ourselves back. If you want to, you can keep the hands on your block here, straightening through your left leg, toes draw back towards us. But again, that leg is slightly diagonal out to the side, and we'll take 2 rounds of breath here as well. Seeing if we can breathe into the space, back of the leg. And then let's come back forward, placing our block out to the side, hands plant on the ground here. I'm going to see if we can push into the palms, lift our left foot up, and then swing it round until that left leg is reaching towards the back of the mat. So you're pushing into the palms, lifting the leg up, and then taking it long. Left leg is reaching, option to come down onto your forearms here. Seeing if we can take that left heel as high as possible. You might draw forward with the chin towards your fingertips. Let's take 1 more round of breath. And then dropping that back to our downward facing dog. So left knee comes down, both knees lift as we tuck the toes, downward facing dog. Looking to the top of your mat, full walk, forward fold. Rising halfway, folding back down, hands find the sky, extended mountain pose. We'll take that all to the other side, forward fold. Lifting halfway, hands come down. This time our left foot steps back, left knee comes down, both hands find the sky. Low lunge or Anjaneyasana, and then again, the hips draw forwards here, opening through the front side of the body. Let's take a round of breath here. Both hands come down to the inside of our right foot, and then shuffling our right foot to the outside of our mat, we could grab our blocks here for that bit of height, placing them underneath our palms, and palms are underneath our shoulders. And then again, drawing forwards here to lift the chest up high, chin might come up high as well. Both hips are forward. Awesome. Maybe you have a kind of wriggle in it to find even just a tiny bit more space. And then let's take another round of breath. From here, coming back to our half split, right foot stays out to the side. So your hands might stay reaching on your block somewhere. Maybe they come down, up to you. And we'll take 2 rounds of breath here. Toes are drawing back towards the knees. And then let's bring ourselves back forward here, removing our block out to the side, palms plant firmly. Again, seeing if we can lift the right foot away from the ground and then take it long behind. Heel is lifted, coming down onto your forearm. Keeping that heel as high as you can here. Looking forward, and maybe you draw the chin and the chest forwards as well here. And we'll take another round of breath. And then slowly dropping our right knee down. This time we'll push back to our child's pose. So hips go all the way back towards the heels. You could stay with the palms down or lifting the palms up here, but coming onto your fingertips. So the fingertips stay down. Almost as if we're trying to grab onto the tennis balls at the top of our mat. Maybe there's a little bit more space to kind of sink into the armpits. And then placing the palms back down, your way back to your downward facing dog. Toes, lifting the knees up. We'll look forward, find our way to the top of our mat, forward fold. Lifting halfway, folding back down, hands find the sky, find each other, and then find the heart. We're going to move through our suns with our lunges today. So we've done this together before, both within this practice and other times in the studio. Option to start with our high lunges today. So we often do this with our low lunges. If you are watching the recording and you want to start with your low lunges, you're welcome to. I'm going to teach starting with the high lunges today and also adding those 3-legged dogs in there. So we'll get fairly warm for these today and we'll move quite quickly. If quickness is not what you want, please do move at your pace. Finding your mountain pose, top of the mat to begin here. So that sense of tallness within your torso, palms are forward. And then opening to the sky, extended mountain, exhale, forward fold. Lifting halfway. Right foot steps back, both knees or right knee even stays lifted. Hands find the sky, high crescent lunge. Exhale, downward facing dog. Both hands come down. Let's go high here, seeing if we can slowly roll forwards to our plank. If you are working with your chaturanga, finding that here, or coming down to the mat from your plank. And then lifting up to find your back bend. If it's up dog, hands are slightly closer to the hip. Tucking toes downward facing dog. Option in downward dog to find your right leg to the sky, 3-legged dog. Wherever you are, stepping forward, high lunge other side, right foot steps forward, both hands find the sky. Exhale, forward fold, top of them. Inhale to lift halfway. Exhale to come round, hands find the sky. We'll take that to the other side, forward fold. Lifting halfway. Hands come down, left foot steps back, both hands find the sky, high crescent lunge. Downward facing dog. 5. From here, your way through to the mat. Maybe you're adding your chaturanga in. Maybe you come down on the knees. Lifting the chest to find your back bend. Meeting downward facing dog. Option to take that left leg to the sky, 3-legged dog. And then stepping forward, high lunge. Hands open as top. Exhale, forward fold, top of them. Inhale to lift half. Exhale to fold, we'll keep it going. Extended mountain, hands find the sky, and then straight back down, forward fold. Lifting halfway. Hands come down, right foot steps back, high crescent lunge. Option to add 3-legged dog in here. Hands come down, left leg sweeps behind, holding it there for a breath. Maybe as you move forwards into your plank, you keep that foot lifted all the way down to the ground. And then finding your back bend, meeting back, downward facing. Feel free to skip it if you prefer. Right leg to the sky, three-legged dog. And then stepping forward, high lunge, other side, hand, find the sky. Exhale, forward fold, top of the mat. Inhale to lift, half. Exhale to fold, big inhale to find the sky. Extended mountain pose. One more time, opposite side, forward fold. Lifting halfway. Hands come down, left foot step back, high crescent lunge, opening up. And then either downward dog or three-legged dog, right leg sweeps behind. If you're there, take a breath. And then rolling it forward, all the way down to the ground. Lift to find your back bend, awesome. Let's meet downward facing. Left leg finds the sky. Stepping our left foot forward, high crescent lunge, hands find the sky. Exhale, forward fold, top of the mat. Inhale to lift, half. Exhale to fold. Big inhale to take hands up to the sky. This time palms find each other and then land at the heart. We're going to take 3 rounds of breath there. Hopefully feeling a little bit warmer. We're going to start our next flow with a couple of standing balances. So to get there, we might focus down on the feet for a moment, lifting the toes and then placing them down, lifting the heels and then placing them down. Repeating that twice more. And then from here, inhale to take the hands up towards the sky. Exhale to find our forward fold. Taking that look down at the toes, we'll pause here. If you have hand to big toe in your practice, we're going to take our left finger, scoop it around our left toe, and then draw back up to standing. You can also take hold of the left knee. So choose what you want to practice with today. If you're lucky like me and you have a wall, you can take hold of that. And then whether you're taking hold of the knee would come out in front, or taking hold of the toe, seeing if we can straighten through that standing leg. Line of energy is up through the top of the head here. Take another round of breath. And then from here, drawing our toe back towards us, so bending the knee, dropping our heel back behind as we find warrior 3. Hands could be forwards. I don't quite have enough space, so I am taking my hands behind today. Let's take another round of breath in our standing balance. Tiny micro bend is there in our standing leg. And then we're going to come all the way back up, lifting the chest. Left knee comes with us, and then left foot crosses over the right knee. Standing figure 4. So that ankle is over the knee, flexes there through the foot, hands come to the heart. You can stay high if you want to here, or we'll start to sit down into our chair pose. We'll take 3 rounds of breath here within this, and we're going to come back to this a couple of times today. If you are exploring taking the hands down, you might hook that right foot, left foot even, on the inside of your elbow. Fingers might reach down towards the ground. Awesome, you got that. We'll take a couple of breaths. And then we're going to take this through the flow that we started with it already. Inhale to find the sky. Hands reach up. Left knee reaches up as well. Big breath in. Exhale, high crescent lunge. Left foot steps back. And then down through our flow. Hands come down. Downward facing dog or 3-legged dog. Foot finds the sky behind. Your way down to the ground. Lift to find your back bend. And then meeting downward facing dog. We'll take it straight to the top of our mat, looking forward, hop, step, or walk, forward fold. Holding that here. And we're going to take that to the other side. So this time, right finger hooks the right toe, or you could take hold of the right knee. drawing ourselves up with the chest, knee or foot moves out in front, your choice. And then let's take a couple of breaths there. Focus is on drawing upwards through the spine. And then from here, slowly releasing the toe. So we're bending through the knee. Heel goes back behind as we come back to our warrior three. So chest comes down here. Heel is reaching towards the back of your mat, toes towards the ground. Flex through the foot helps to engage through the muscles in the leg. Take another round of breath. And then again, we're going to come back up to our standing figure four. So chest comes up, knee comes up, crossing that ankle over left knee. You could stay here, hands come to heart, or we can start to sit down into our chair pose. Maybe we explore taking the hands down. Left elbow hooks into your foot. Both hands might reach towards the ground. Does not matter if they don't touch. We'll take a couple of breaths there. And then again, slowly rising all the way up. Both hands find the sky. Extended mountain, right knee is lifted. And then stepping that back, high crescent lunge. Your way through that flow, downward facing dog or three-legged dog, left leg sweeps behind. Your way down to the ground. Lifting to find your back bend. We'll meet in our child's pose this time. That option is there to come onto the fingertips again. Palms are lifted. Or to find perhaps a more restful variation of your child's pose. And we'll take around 5 to 7 rounds of breath. When you're ready, hands might come back forward if they're behind, lifting the torso just enough here, but rather than coming up to our downward facing dog, tucking the toes, lifting the knees and pushing back to our malasana towards the back of your mat. We're going to set up for our first crow pose of our practice today, even if this is something that you're fully not working with here. If it is something you're already familiar with and you are happy to practice, feel free to take yourself there, but we'll start with a little bit of alignment. So hands want to stack roughly under the shoulders. Middle fingers are forwards, maybe the thumbs are facing towards each other. And then bending the elbows deeply, taking the hips to the sky here, drawing our knees to the back of our elbows. Seeing if we can spread that weight out evenly through the hands. So give the hands a little bit of grip here. Looking forwards rather than down. Maybe you experiment lifting one toe or both toes. Beautiful. Take another round of breath. And then dropping the hips back down. Give the hands a roll. And then we'll walk ourselves back to our downward facing dog. So hands reach forward. Focus is on our jump forwards this time. So bending the knees generously and then using that spring to get us top of the mat forward fold. Lifting halfway. Folding back down. Hands find the sky, find each other, find our heart. We'll take a couple of breaths here. We're going to start our next flow with our sun salutation A. So when you're ready, opening to the sky, extended mountain pose, exhale, forward fold. Inhale to lift halfway. Hands come down, step or hop to your plank. Maybe it's chaturanga, bending elbows, dropping the chest, coming forward, or lowering to the ground. Lift to find your back bend, meeting downward facing dog. And we'll take a round of breath when you get. In our downward facing dog, right leg finds the sky. And then stepping our right foot forward as we come up, high crescent lunge. Hands come up to the sky, palms are facing towards each other, bending generously through the knees. We're going to find a little bit of movement with the hand here. Bending elbows to take the elbows wide as they open. Let's keep that going. Hands sweep down. Inhale to come back to the sky. Take that twice more. Elbows bend to peel the chest open. Hands come all the way down. And then inhale to come back. One more time. Hands come all the way down behind. Inhale to find the sky. This time, dropping our back heel down. Foot is 45 degrees, straightening through that front leg. Both hands find the sky. So we're lifting up here, ready to come into our pyramid pose. We're going to see if we can pivot from the hip, hands, our arms even, and our torso stay in a straight line. So torso starts to move forward here, hands in line. As the hands and torso come down, pausing when you're roughly parallel to the ground. You might take 3 rounds of breath there. If you want to fold your torso down further here, hands could land either side of your shins. You could also add your blocks in here if you can't quite reach. Hips are pulling to the back of your mat. Maybe you're experimenting taking nose towards chin. We'll take 2 rounds of breath here. Bending our front knee just enough to plant both hands either side of our right foot. Bringing our center of gravity forwards here, seeing if we can keep the torso low, lifting our back leg up towards the sky. So we're using that pivot here to still come into our standing splits. Left foot is reaching, looking towards the back of your mat. We'll take another round of breath. Strong through standing leg. We'll take this slowly, forward fold top of the mat as our left foot comes down beside the right. Take a moment here. Inhale to lift, half. Exhale to fold all the way through our sun A to the other side. Extended mountain pose. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale to lift, half. Hands come down as we step or hop to our plank, your way down to the ground. Lift to find your back bend, meeting downward facing dog. This time, left leg finds the sky, 3-legged dog. And then stepping left foot forward, high lunge, arms are facing towards each other, that bit of sync. And again, movement with the arms here. So we're peeling the chest open, hands sink down behind. Inhale to sweep them forwards back to the sky, twice more. Opening of the chest. And then sweeping back forwards one more time. Elbows draw wide. Hands come back to the sky. As the hands come up, dropping our back heel, foot is 45 degrees or toes are still pointing a little bit further forwards. Hips are forwards. Hands find the sky, straightening through our front leg. And then seeing if we can keep both hips backwards as the torso starts to come down. You could pause when your hands or arms even and your torso are parallel to the ground, or you can take your hands further down, fold that over your front leg. We'll take those 3 rounds of breath. Pyramid, slightly modified. We may be taking a wider pyramid than we might normally here. 2 more breaths. And then starting to bend through the front knee to take our center of gravity forwards. Hands plant either side of your left foot. Seeing if we can keep the torso low, nose towards the shin as we start to peel that right foot this time upwards towards the sky. Standing split, looking towards the back of your head. And then slow transition, right foot comes alongside the left, seeing if we can keep the torso low still. Inhale to rise, half. Exhale to fold. Big inhale to find the sky. Both hands come together, land at the heart. We'll take 3 rounds of breath here. We're going to give ourselves a little bit more space to play this time. So we'll come through our balancing sequence. So back to the previous sequence here. If you want to grab your block, you might place them top of your mat, but having a little bit of space between them. So rather than starting at the top of our mat today, for this flow, we might start somewhere near the center of our mat. We've got a bit more space to play with this and to perhaps come towards that flying pigeon or have a play around with it. So from here, inhale to find the sky, extended mountain. Exhale to fold all the way down. As we come down, left finger, find your left toe, lifting up as we bend through the knee. You could stay here, holding the knee, or you could extend left leg out in front of you. Right hand could be on your hip, or it could be out towards the side, kind of stabilizing. Seeing if we can find our energy is upwards here. So we're not leaning forwards in. Shoulders are drawn back over the hip. Take one more breath. And then drawing our knee or heel back towards us, releasing the toe to take left heel back behind. Warrior 3, hands might reach forward. Or if you don't have enough space like me, hands are reaching alongside their hip. Take one more breath here. And then all the way back to our mountain pose. Both hands find the sky, left knee comes up, and then left ankle crosses over the right knee. Hands find the heart. Standing figure 4, you could stay here, sit this down into your chair, or again, we'll start to play with our standing or arm balance, I guess, here. So you might take that right arm down, tucking elbow into the hook of your foot. Left elbow is on the outside of your shin as well. Maybe there's a little bit of space for your block. Maybe there isn't. And then seeing if we can come forward, landing on those blocks. Maybe this is where you stay today. This is where I'm going to stay today. But if you are playing around, we're going to keep our center of gravity coming forward. Awesome. Take another breath. And then let's slowly lift ourselves back up. Hands come all the way to the sky. Left knee comes up. Exhale, high crescent lunge. From here, both hands come down. Three-legged dog, right leg sweeps behind. Inhale to draw knee through to the outside of our right elbow. Exhale, heel to the sky. Inhale to take our right foot to the outside of our right hand, planting it there. So we're coming back to our lizard lunge. Again, if you have your blocks here and you want to play around with them, we'll take our blocks underneath our hands, fingers are around the edges of our block. Tucking our left toe, lifting our left knee. Maybe this is where you stay. Or we're going to take that right hand with the block in, drop the shoulder, thread it underneath, and then take our block to the outside of our right foot. So we're using our right elbow as our shelf here. Awesome. And again, you could stay here. Hands are underneath supporting. Maybe you experiment with taking that right foot forward. And it might be a little wriggle of the toes. Maybe the heel is on the ground, maybe it lifts. We'll take a little bit of time here to kind of play around with this. And then let's drop our back knee down. Unravel our hands back through. And then we're going to tuck our back toe again, lift the back knee, come off your blocks if you're still on them like me. Whoops. And then let's take that foot all the way behind, three-legged dog, right foot behind. Your way through your vinyasa, through the ground. We'll meet in our child's pose for 5 rounds of breath. Maybe you give the wrists a bit of love whilst you're in your child pose. So it could be squeezes. It could be a few rolls. You're welcome to stay resting or meeting back in our downward facing dog. That rise of the torso up, toes up, hips find the sky. Looking forward, your weight top of the mat, forward fold. Rising halfway. Folding back down, hands find the sky, find each other, find the heart. Again, before we come all the way through, let's set our space. So both blocks are at the top of the mat. If you know you don't need them on this side, feel free to take them out of the way. And then we're roughly around the center of our mat. So when we do come into our kind of exploration of pigeon pose, we've got space to drop ourselves in forwards. So rather than stacking them directly under, there's more work to do. When we come forwards, we have slightly less work to do. Awesome. And then your mountain pose, top of the mat. Inhale to find the sky, extended mountain pose. Exhale, forward fold. As we come down, right fingertips, that right toe, lifting up to find our standing balance. Maybe it's here with the knee. Maybe you extend the leg out in front, hand to big toe. Take a couple of breaths there. And then drawing your knee back towards you, releasing your heel back behind, warrior three. One more breath. And then both hands come up to find the sky. Extended mountain pose, right knee draws up. And then standing figure four, right ankle crosses over the left knee, hands draw to the heart. From here, sitting that down into your chair pose. Again, outside of left elbow, hooks into your foot. Back of right elbow hooks into the front of your knee or shin. See if it feels like you've got more or less space to lean forwards. So bend that left knee, lean forwards and into your block. So there's that bend through the elbows to find your shot. And then maybe you can draw the chest forwards here. If you're playing around with floating the back foot. And then let's slowly bring ourselves back. Both hands find the sky. Right knee lifts up. High crescent lunge. Right foot steps behind. Both hands find the sky. We'll come down to our three-legged dog. Hands come down. Left foot sweeps behind. Three-legged dog. Inhale to take knee to the outside of our left elbow. Heel back to the sky. This time, left foot steps to the outside of our left hand. Take a moment to find those blocks again. If you are working with that, you can also do this without the block, tucking right toes, lifting the right knee. Take a moment. And then if you are working with taking your left shoulder down, threading that around so the back of your elbow is on the thigh. And then maybe you're playing around with taking that left heel forward. Maybe the heel lifts. Doesn't. See how it feels on this side. Move forwards on the toe. And then let's slowly unravel both hands to the inside of the foot. So we're in that lizard lunge. Tucking back toes, lifting the back knee, big push to use the core, three-legged dog. Your way through your vinyasa option is always there to keep that foot lifted as we roll forward, all the way down to the ground. Your back bend, and then again, we'll meet back in our child's pose. Again, we'll take a bit longer this time. So give the wrists their squeezes if they want, or you could kind of rest everything down here An option before we start to wind things back down here is to come through to our headstand. So if you already know this is in your practice and you don't want to practice with a wall, then feel free to do this in the middle of the mat. If, like me, you enjoy doing this with a wall, you might kind of shuffle yourself around to a wall. If you don't want to do headstand, you can totally ignore me. We'll come in from our dolphin pose, but to set ourselves up, we'll measure the space between our elbows. So taking hold of opposite elbow here, measuring that space, and then planting the elbows down, either forearms, palms are down, or interlacing the fingers, and then seeing if we can take the very top of your head down onto the mat here. So chin is slightly tucked, and then lifting the hips to find your dolphin pose. We'll spend a little bit of time here, seeing if we can walk the toes as close as we can. If you have your 2-leg lift, you could take that here. Otherwise, taking one leg to the sky, maybe there's a slight lift and you've already taken it up. Park and hold is a great way to come in. For me, I personally find the tuck and hold really hard. So you could take that one leg up and then using the core there to get the second leg up. I'm going to give everything a good rest down in that child's pose again. Kind of rule, I guess I have a personal rule when I'm doing my headstands is to give it 3 tries and then come back to it again later. For now, we'll start to slow things down. So we might find our child's pose again here. Options take that different variation by taking a block underneath the head and then hands come alongside the body, palms facing up. So seeing if we can kind of rest the shoulders down when we're in this pose. You can do this without the block if you would prefer as well. We'll take a couple more breaths here. And rather than coming through another flow today, we'll find a little bit more kind of stretch, maybe a little bit more work with our inversion in shoulder stand. So from here, palms come down as we lift the head up. Last time through our downward facing dog. So toes up, hip spine to sky. Walking our hands roughly to the center of our mat here. We can either take a step or a hop to the hands, or you can kind of jump the feet all the way through. I'm going to take a step to the hands and then drop the hips down. Legs come out in front for our forward fold. I'm going to suggest we take our legs out in front for our forward fold today. If you want to ignore me and take one of the other variations, find that instead. And then as always, that bit of tallness through the spine here, extension of the hands upwards, and then drawing forwards with your chest. Hands might come down to toes, they might come down to shins. If you've got that kind of wrap of the palms over, you might find palms and soles of the feet touching. Chin cupped down. And we'll be here for around 7 of our slow breaths. So if you'd rather not be in stillness here, you might find a little bit of movement with breath. Inhaling to lift the chest ever so slightly, and then exhaling to sink it back down. Start to slow back down as well here. And then slowly rising ourselves all the way back up, using our hands to scoop the knees up. Feet come roughly as wide as the hips. We want enough space to be coming down on our back. And if there's things that you would like here to kind of keep yourself warm, feel free to have them near you, as this will be our kind of journey into rest today through our boat pose. So last little bit of core work here. Hands find knees. For me, it's the edges of my knees. It could be the top of your knees. Chest is lifted, spine is tall. And then one shin joins, other shin joins parallel to the ground. Seeing if we can keep chest and collarbones lifted. Option is there to float the hands. If you're working around with straightening through one or both legs, take that variation. And we'll take 2 rounds of breath here. And then slow and steady all the way down to the ground. Eventually letting everything land for a moment here. Rather than hugging our knees into chest, option is there to take our shoulder stand. So those of you watching the recording as well, if you don't want to do your shoulder stand here, you could take your block underneath your hip. So you've got that little bit of height, and take your legs up to the sky. Great variation. If you do want to come into your shoulder stand here, elbows are tight into the ribs and then grounded. Hands are ready to kind of catch the hips. And then we'll use the core to kind of rock a little bit and come into our shoulder stand. So use your body, scooping the hips. And then once you've got it, we're going to drop our knees down towards the nose here. Once you're there, see if you can take your elbows closer together behind you, and then walk your hands closer towards the shoulder. So this will help find a little bit more height. Once you've got that, then re-straightening through the body, toes are up towards the sky. You could stay here hanging out if you prefer. You could take one leg overhead until the toes come down, and then the other, or you could take both of them down. Maybe they find the ground, maybe they don't. Stay with it for as long as you like. The suggestion for coming out of this pose here is to take the hands down first, so the palms are on the mat, and then you can slowly lower the hips down. There might be a little bit of roll, but eventually coming all the way down. And then once you land, you're very welcome to kind of hug the knees in, take a bit of a roll around, whatever you might enjoy here within your practice. We've got a minute here before we come to our final resting pose. So there's that space to come back to anything that you would like to explore further. So maybe there was something you were working with today and you'd enjoy exploring it one more time. It might be some twists. It might be rest already. Maybe you want to counter any of those back bends with a bridge. Not really a counter, but what I mean. There's no rush here, but if we start thinking about our final resting pose, if you are at home and you have a wall or a bed or a chair and you would like to take your rest with your feet up in the air today, then in a moment you might kind of shuffle yourself closer to one of those things. You can also take your rest fully lying down on the mat. But if it does feel like legs up the wall or legs up the sofa might be a nice option for you today, then maybe you start to set that up for yourself, or whatever else you would like for your final resting pose today. Grab any layers you want to keep yourself warm. If you do have your legs up something here, we're looking for as little kind of effort as possible within this. So for me, that means stacking my heels or the knees directly over the hips. So there's less kind of like of my muscles doing the work to keep them in there. Hands could be on the torso, Or if you are feeling a little bit more open today, you might take the hands kind of big in a Y shape or a Q shape. This might feel nice to the shoulders. And might top in slightly here. Then we'll start to move into our rest. So perhaps connecting back with your breath here. You don't necessarily have to do anything other than observe. Maybe kind of sinking into the natural rhythm of your breath. Noticing how it feels. We'll be here for a couple more minutes. Today, you want to stay here for the rest of your practice. You might stay exactly where you are. Otherwise, if you have your legs on something, you might draw the knees closer into your chest here. Just kind of give yourself a squeeze, like arms around your knees. And taking maybe 10 or so breaths here, and that might be pausing in stillness, or you could take a bit of a sway around. I always enjoy bringing myself round to a seat. So that's what you'll often see me kind of offer in these classes or any of my classes. So if you would like to join in a seat to close and rolling it over to one side, and then eventually making your way through to a seat. There's no rush. If you want to take a bit more movement before you find a seat. And we've got those blocks if you do want to place one under your hip. Hands might find the knees, maybe your favorite mudra. Maybe the eyes closed down for a moment, or finding a focus, excuse me, out in front of you. Taking a moment here to honor your practice, to honor yourself as well, your body and your mind, for allowing you to be with your practice today, for moving within. We might take a few deeper breaths together here. So if you would like to join, inhale to fill the body with air. Exhale or sigh. We'll take that twice more in your own time. One more time. Hands might eventually come through to the heart center. And then taking a bow both to self, to each